definitely don't have to pretend it's some sort of like production ready performance or something. It's just kind
Right.
of there, and who knows. Actually, I would like to though sort of get in a practice of sort of taking notes if there are sort of highlighted areas, or
Mm.
use the text chat sort of as like a table of contents, because it does
Mm.
Zoom does do a pretty good job of sort of at least when it saves the text chat, they have timestamps. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. We
Makes
can use
sense.
that for notes.
Okay, cool.
Actually, I was just thinking before getting on the call about, I don't know, like a general recommendation of a type of, like if you are writing notes or thoughts, like a general recommendation of what to use. Like I think HackMD is pretty good. I don't know. I was just sort of thinking how there's things like latex, like if you need to get into more sophisticated sort of like mathematical sort of uh, fractions and complex like stuff. And I'm pretty sure HackMD can embed a lot of those things. But I don't know, just sort of generally thinking about hypertext or hypermedia and sort of what's the go-to thing to use. And also, yeah, how to make it more accessible.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. Even I think something like Markdown is trying to make text a little bit more sophisticated, but still sort of approachable. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
think for some people, something like HackMD or Markdown is even still too much of a hurdle, especially if it sort of requires that potential sort of like two-windowed mode of
Mm-hmm.
like the raw markdown and then what it visually looks like if you hide all the sort of markup B type stuff.
Yeah. No, I don't like, I just, I don't have like a consistent thing. I just, whatever is seems to be to me to be the context. Like I'm not like rigid about it. It's like, oh, this is a chat with this person, and we're familiar with HackMD, so I throw one of those up. Or I'm just
Mm,
taking these notes for my purposes. Like the other day in the call, and I wasn't even thinking about it ahead of time, so I just was like desperate to like grab a note taking things. I used Apple Notes, like just on my system, and then
mm-hmm.
yeah. So no, I don't have any magic tricks.
Well, I guess
Like
that'll
it gets disorganized, and I'm not. I would say, yeah, I'm not fixed on one, probably because I'm not necessarily happy with one either.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah, there's that extra complication that you said where it's like if you're in a pinch, yeah, and even in physical space, like you're just going to grab whatever is in front of you and write it
Hmm.
down or type it down. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's like
guess,
it's just into text. So like there's the immediate, and then there's the after. It feels like there's the two. There's like the fact that you can capture it, and then there's
yeah,
what
well,
to do with it afterwards. But actually, Notes was kind of nice because it has, at least it has basic like formatting. So like I can select some text and then hit Command B to bold it, for example. Like,
mm,
which I know that keyboard shortcut is a common bolding shortcut. Like that's true in Microsoft Word or Notes or Google Docs or like some other place. So you get like basic formatting and structure like out of these some certain text tools. And I think it's very helpful to have even basic keyboard shortcuts for text formatting. And I don't know if HackMD has anything like that where you could just like keyboard shortcut and then it would apply, like it would apply the thing that you just do, the action to the text.
I'm not sure, but it comes to mind that I think they're even more sophisticated than just a basic
Mm.
note thing, because I think they let you choose like I'm an Emacs guy, I'm a Vim guy, and then it'll actually switch on the fly depending on like what your assumed sort of shortcuts are.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna try to find keyboard shortcuts. Um,
But I don't know. Obviously, this might seem fairly tangential, but obviously, I'm still thinking it like, well, yeah, even in the case where you said, I'm just going to type it in with whatever I have, like with RSF, we're sort of enabling, well, if a module is made for it or a bot slash API for it, like almost any input.
mhm.
But I think like, yeah, I guess we pointed out yesterday this sort of dual thing of like, sure, we can sort of be enabling any input, but I think we should also be sort of designing like almost like a, at least our go-to or like the default sort of like best practice of like, um, this is a really nice streamlined tool set for working with this system. And if you learn how to use it, then we're actively developing that thread or that stream. And so
Mhm.
like, um, yeah, just because like the other thing related to notes, like if you just type it down anywhere, it just sort of sits there and maybe gets lost. And a big piece of what I'm hopeful all this can help do is that sort of data pooling, the sort of iterative, come back to it over
Mhm.
time, have it searchable, queryable, and therefore it's sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it matters where you enter it and where that file or
yeah, yeah. No,
data then goes and
I agree. I think one that comes to mind was like this crazy like thing that I don't know if you remember how like Ishan used this one note-taking tool a long time ago. It was like
mm,
it was in his like system tray essentially, and like he captured a lot of his notes to it. And so it was fairly like a, it felt like very much like a fairly pro tool, but at the same time like maybe I don't know how exclusive or how difficult to use it actually was. I think it was called like,
was it Tinderbox?
no,
But it was an app, an Apple product, right, or an iOS or not iOS,
it
but
was a
like
Mac.
yeah, Mac. That's the one I was thinking
Uh, I have to ask him again what it was called. But I know that it was just, it was very good about like you're adding up notes, but pretty much immediately when you open it with a keyboard shortcut, it assumes that you're like trying to reference something that you previously wrote. So you start typing whatever, you know, keywords come to mind that um, from what you previously wrote, and then it will be showing you like quick results for that, and then you go to that one and then enter that note, and then you're back in that context. So kind of just like a very, it assumes it prioritizes maybe searchability over like it makes searchability like a first class feature instead of a second thing that you maybe remember to do every now and then when you finally think about like trying to search for something. It's more like, no, search is an essential part of what you do, because so often maybe what you're doing now is probably related in some way to something prior that you did. So
of.
why not build on that context or in whatever space you were working in at the time when you were doing, paying attention to something that was related to this thing that you know.
Yeah, and, well, actually, and related to how some of these, well, I don't know, we're gonna eventually break out of just the sort of pairwise comparison focus, but like I see it also as a personal tool, not just for sort of personal knowledge management, but for sort of personal sort of understanding, especially if you take up a practice of maybe trying to articulate your values or articulate your interests, and then that it can be something that sort of in this sort of ikigai slash life work mapping area that you can sort of really get to the core of maybe what your priorities are, or yeah, what would it look like to be at the center of that sort of
Mm,
ikigai map, and to have it sort of in your hand and articulated like but yeah, I could totally see that sort of like almost like a daily practice of reminding yourself, oh yeah, these are my intentions, these are my values, these are, and that you extrude something like a resume also out of it, because in there would be things like skills, but it wouldn't be like I was saying
mm,
yesterday, it wouldn't be like this sort of contrived, maybe even half bullshitting thing you do on resumes just to get a job. It would be like a real thing for yourself, and that would be something
mm.
else you could get out of sort of ongoing iterative pairwise thing, and that yeah.
I was thinking about using your computer, like focusing on your environment.
Getting it installed.
And, yeah, getting like it installed and just generally kind of introductory type stuff, like or setup type stuff as well on your system. So maybe focusing on screen sharing and like and just going through things and
yeah, it sounds good. And I don't know if there's maybe we could, it'd be cool if we could see the ins and outs of maybe one whole module by, I know we had ideas of a slightly tweaked, yet again, sort of pairwise module where instead of, and I don't know if the logic for what I'm about to say is embedded in one of the modules, but how we were saying that instead of dividing up, say, all the statements or options amongst the peers participating, that you just have a big pool and you're pulling from them as you finish.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one too, and actually it seems like a great thing to tackle, to try. Yeah.
Cool. So should I just start sharing screen and we can start, 1 second here. We can just start installing stuff if I don't already have it. Where do we got here? GitHub.
For the most part, you do have it. Probably don't have the one repository that is relevant, that the no-flo RSF one.
Okay. So cool. I will, I guess to describe it, I use the GitHub desktop app, which makes things fairly easy to sort of even do Git-based things that sometimes take commands that I'm not always up on, but I guess through practice that won't be the case.
That's what I've been like, Pega's been using the GitHub desktop UI too, and it's working really well for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I should have that locally now.
Nice. Yeah.
And
okay, so then it's terminal time.
let me just close some of this stuff. And okay, it's there. Cool. And you're saying terminal. There's this thing. All right. So is this to test if I have certain, what is this? If I have certain things installed, or?
I guess the node-v to double check what node you're running. That's fine. That's good. Yeah. So okay. So the two steps that we were maybe thinking of is getting the Electron app working on your system again. And we could do that first, since it's sort of well, it's not the actual coding task. We'll just get it there and then it'll be done. So that one is the rsf-electron one.
Like a whole other.
It's yeah, but I think we already got it on your system.
Oh, okay.
I think because we tried to that one day at the Nexus Lounge.
But that would have been on my laptop, right?
Oh yes, on your laptop. That's right. Yeah. So okay. So yeah, to your desktop. Yeah, doing that. That's rsf-electron.
This one. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I'm just going to close some others because I don't even know why. Oh, I restarted my computer so that it was ready to go. Let's close down some. Got a million things open. Okay. So is it? I forget. Is it the what is it? npm something or?
Yeah. So go to the change directories to the rsf-electron directory.
Electron.
rsf-electron. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then the usual, when you clone a new npm project, what's the usual command that you have to, the first one that you have to run?
Is it npm install or?
Yep.
Whoops. And that's looking at the node module, or what was it? Where's this thing? What's the folder it's looking at? Oh no, it's the package.json, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. TypeScript and MongoDB. Cool. Yeah. Is it already using that? You said.
Why does it have Mongo? Wait, which one is this? This is
Oh, this is no-flo. Never mind.
That's a no-flo one. That's right.
Okay. Cool.
This one.
This one looks even bigger.
Those are the scripts. Up is the dependencies there. So the FBP ones are the flow-based programming ones. The FBP client and FBP graph. And then there's some RSF ones. So we have this sort of RSF namespace for the general ecosystem of RSF modules, so you can kind of identify them pretty easily.
Cool. That's on npm itself?
I say that sort of, it's mostly I'm prefixing things like with RSF. So
like FBP is done, or?
Yeah, just as a convention, not as a sort of a locked-in thing.
Yeah.
Then a couple of React dependencies, React DOM, React Router DOM, a couple of Electron, and then socket.io ones, and then TypeScript, which we've been talking about.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
What is? Yeah.
It looks fine. I don't see any problems there. These messages are getting bigger and bigger. They don't really say anything. So
That's what always throws me off with like terminal stuff, where it's like so much to read. How much do I actually need to read this?
Or pretty much you'll know if something like went like fundamentally wrong.
You see error somewhere or some red colored text or something.
A lot of times if you don't see that, just carry on. Yeah. So there's two different ways when you're in rsf-electron of sort of running it. There's sort of a development mode and a production mode. And we can run the production mode by first building everything that there is to be sort of precompiled. And that means running npm run build, I guess.
I guess I should have actually, maybe each command I'll just sort of put in here. Clone both rsf on. I guess I can just put this here. No flow. I don't know. It's close enough. Oh, and so you're saying.
npm
Sorry, I missed.
npm run build. This is a React-based command. It takes all the React source files and builds a single JavaScript file out of them. So it's creating an optimized production build.
And wait, is Electron React based, or it's just this is a combination of both, I guess?
Yeah.
But the run build command, that's, you're saying that's a React only, or just
That's
because of
React.
what's in our?
Yeah, that's a
React
command.
Cool. Okay.
And then now that we have those files built, so see in the rsf-electron folder, there's the new build folder. And it's in there that I think these new files are. So this is kind of, these are the assets that basically function as the user interface. These are the UI assets. The HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are all in this folder. Under static, you've got CSS and JS, so it's all in there.
Cool.
But to run it now and to run it in like connecting to the live or the web, the production version of no-flo, the no-flo runtime, you run npm run electron.
Oh, so the run build is kind of just like one of those commands that builds sort of like a dev scaffolding that gives you all the little files that you're obviously going to need, and they're sort of just templates and empty, or?
No, it's those are the actual files that are going to be used to within the UI when we actually run it. Like it loads that HTML file and CSS and JavaScript. Like those are the actual assets that it references in order to serve up the
I mean,
UI.
that command is useful to any app that's using React, or it's using some sort of like configuration file based on this particular project that does it differently for us.
Right. Well, I worked with Create React App, which is kind of like a pre-canned React configuration. So,
Okay.
So that you can avoid getting into so much like configuration stuff. So it's basically a Create React App command.
Oh, okay.
The next one's npm run electron.
Okay. And again, is this run command like entirely, like you're saying, a React thing?
Oh, actually, hold on.
Oh, something popped up though.
Yeah, Control-C, kill that.
Do I close this, I guess?
Yeah, you can close it and Control-C. We have to do the thing where I send you our app secrets. We did this the other time as well, and so let me do that.
Oh, because this is actually connecting to the runtime no-flo thing?
Yeah.
Cool, okay. Maybe this piece we shouldn't screen share, or at least I'll move this off to the side here for a second.
Yeah, if you have a window that's like, no. Let's see. create a file in the rsf-electron root folder called .env-prod.
In here, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. .env-prod, P-R-O-D.
Doesn't matter case sensitivity.
All kind of lowercase, yeah, like that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and then I'm going to DM you the text for it in Telegram.
So just paste this in.
Mm-hmm.
And these are environment variables, but the prod means they're the production ones, like meaning the server that's actually running, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's saved.
Okay, cool. Now you can restart it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's running. Here it is.
Nice.
That's funny. It actually looks like a typical. Is this default to what you're saying? Create React app, having this sort of like Windows-y sort of menu bar thing.
That's default Electron stuff.
Ah, okay.
The React part is everything inside of the main panel there.
Cool.
So looks cool.
And so as I'm running different processes, the designs and the data output and that sort of thing, those are being stored locally, and that'll show up in my dashboard, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually don't know exactly what the path on the Windows system would be, but we can locate it. We can locate what that folder would be so that you could see the. But yeah, let's try running one. Let's just try a quick one, like.
Cool. Whatever. Generate ideas.
See if this server has been. I'll have to check this.
Oh, it's relying on the. Is that
This part, it connects to the remote. To the remote no-flow RSF thing. The Heroku. It might just be that it's been sleeping, and maybe try clicking out of it and then or back in the app.
back in the.
Just try going home and then going back to it again.
Oh, there it goes.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, I guess. Actually, where so we can sort of do things in parallel. You were saying ideas for sort of what needs to be done next for RSF at all sort of scales is happening in this sort of org-based project.
Yeah.
Cool, because I was just thinking that, I don't know, there might be some useful sort of feedback to give there if like the server's down, to say like the reason it's stuck is the server's down or something like that.
Yeah, I could capture something like that.
Said loading. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess you were saying it can be something quick and dirty, like even in here. How do you create a note?
I just created one at the top there. You just click the little plus button.
Okay. Add a note. Okay, so this is, you already created it then.
Yeah, I just created that one. You can edit it or convert it to issue.
Oh, cool. So because I'm part of the org, I can edit it, and then if it's an issue, then I guess it'll have, oh wow, it pops open.
Yeah, it's got extra stuff there.
Assignees, projects,
this one is related to, this one would be related to the rsf-electron repo, so we could create it as an issue or convert it to an issue within and then you pick the
Oh, you choose a
repository.
repository. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Oh, and it can see all within the org, and that's
Linked
cool.
one. Yeah.
Man, it's been a while since I used GitHub, but yeah, it's really nice.
Mhm.
And it's kind of crazy. We're pretty much using a full Microsoft suite, or at least I am, between the
Yeah.
VS Code and GitHub and the GitHub
True.
desktop client. And but
Actually, I was just converting Jonathan to VS Code um, the other day, showing him some stuff that it does. He's like, "Oh my goodness, this is so amazing."
yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe I've installed some different extensions or something. But while I was clicking around in even these dependencies, I was noticing down here it's telling me like based on the line I'm on, like who
Oh
edited that
wow,
who edited that
I see
thing.
that not just there. I see it faintly on the right.
Oh yeah, sorry. There's a lot of sun here in my room, but I remember there was something here where I was like, wait, who's this person's name and why is it showing it to me? And then I thought I realized like,
Mm,
oh, that's because it's going out to like some remote GitHub repo and finding out like who's the actual person. Like, oh, there it is. Whatever this
yeah,
build thing is. Oh, because maybe this was forked or something.
I
Like I don't know
forked
who
this.
this
Yeah,
Christian person is, but
yeah, I forked this a template project to start this.
super cool.
Hmm.
Wow, and you can jump to I guess what
Oh, that's
commits
really
and
cool.
yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Anyways, let's not get lost in the.
Okay, so just convert it to one in the rsf-electron one handle loading state, and you could just maybe add a little detail.
Cool. Yeah. Anyways, just to get something down, you ran into an error. Let me just copy this so I don't lose it. I don't know what it's talking about. Refresh and try again. Maybe because we were both trying to do something with it. Oh yeah.
That's weird.
Weird. It's not letting me do it.
Oh,
Maybe because you created it, or I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyways, we
Yeah.
don't need to get stuck with that. Where did this go? Cool. So, um, responses limited,
Yeah, works for
time
me.
allowed. I'll let 60. Oh, and you said the bug was fixed with whatever happened here, right?
Yeah.
Telegram. Yours was just
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, why not? Next preview. What is this for?
This one's a work in progress.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's going to give you a recap of like all your preferences.
Start now.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I.
Oh,
Weird.
um,
I clicked it. I don't know what
oh
happened.
yeah, it just
Oh, I clicked
started
it
up.
twice.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I'll capture that too. That's a usability note.
Is that related to maybe because we were getting some double questions before? Maybe it was related
Yeah,
to
yeah.
accidentally double clicking because you didn't get feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Cool.
I'm
Well,
trying
we
to.
only have 60 seconds, so let me
I'll
just
capture
try.
that. Did you if you go to my dashboard in the app too, and then you'll see um, okay, so clicking run now didn't immediately start.
Oh, Yay, it's done. And cool, got all the results back immediately too.
Double that.
Oh, and because I guess there was two simultaneous processes happening, it sort of took each of my entries as
Mm-hmm.
a double entry too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you say you were going to log some of the...
Yeah, I caught that. Yeah. Clicking run now or start now or whatever it was that it said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ah, cool. There it is.
Mhm.
Sweet.
Okay, great. So that's so, and then when you go to my dashboard, it's like just listed there. Yeah, cool.
And I guess, well, I don't know what prior thought exists in terms of like um, user stuff, but I think it would be cool to have different profiles as a facilitator for maybe even different contexts or different projects. So
Mm.
I don't know if that's something that already came to mind, but yeah, I was just seeing this circle made me think, what is that supposed to represent? Is that like the profile I'm currently under, or
Mm.
although I guess you said some of this, where did you say the link was to with some of the mock-ups for the interface stuff? Is that
Yeah,
linked on the
actually, I
Electron?
was just wanting to make a request of Pega. Pega, would you open the link to the RSF designs, the CoSense designs? Would you make it an open link?
Actually, you calling to Pega reminded me I sent her a link recently to an event, a free event at the McLuhan Center with Skawanati that I was going to go
Yeah.
to anyways. I don't know if she told you about it, but
Yeah, she mentioned that. Sounds cool.
actually, I wound up getting. I was looking again this morning at sort of that Vesturiano 3D graph sort of VR thing, and it reminded me that I finally got the like Second Life thing working on my computer, and sort of I went into abtec.land or whatever it was,
Oh yeah.
just to sort of play around. It's kind of cool.
Pega might be interested to hear about that.
Yeah.
Could you just send it to me on Signal or something, like the link? Yeah, sure.
And is that it? Indigenousfutures.net. Yeah, it was abtec.land.
Oh, that's cool.
Just for who knows. Anyways,
All right.
someday matrix.cafe will be a place we can run some RSF processes through.
Actually, one cool thing that I've been realizing about the code that we've been developing is that it is actually so, some of the code, the way that it's written and stuff, is so modular that really it would be very easy to repurpose stuff like the pairwise flow design for different, like in different projects. Like you could import the pairwise thing as a library and then run it anywhere you're running JavaScript or whatever. Like you could use it entirely separate from any of the no-flow or RSF context. Like just as a, just you could just import it and be like, this is a great, pre-canned algorithm. I give it all my inputs, it runs the flow, and
remind me,
mhm.
related exactly to that,
Mhm.
in the sort of RSF logic sort of modules, there was a you were explaining before how you broke the logic out from all the sort of markup that is sort of no flow based. What was it called again, and where do I see an example of one of those?
Let me see. I think we're talking about no-flow RSF now.
Like so, yeah, like the actual modules, or
Yeah,
the...
that's in no-flow RSF. Yeah,
Oh, here it is.
we've got the places to pay attention are the TS components and the TS libs. Um,
Mm.
where the TS components are the ones that actually like turn into no-flow components.
Mm-hmm.
But I have separated in a lot of cases the the main sort of functionality from the no-flow.
Oh, core logic. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah, so these functions called core logic, where it actually, yeah. I think so. If you're going to do this one, then I think you want to do an npm install for no-flow RSF, and we'll open this one up in the terminal too.
Cool.
So it's trying to pay attention to. Oh, there's here some uh, terminal results to logs.
So if I
If
oh
you
wait,
just if you
two.
stop it, oh,
Sorry.
oh, that was actually one of the errors. That error up at the top probably was the error that went uncaught.
Oh. Oh,
Actually,
while it was loading or
yeah.
whatever. Do you want me to
If
attach
you,
that to the?
yeah, attach that to the issue. The whole
Is it?
thing from the two lines. Oh wait. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
do
just grab both. Yeah.
okay. Actually, that's probably all that's needed.
Yeah,
Whoa. I think I got it.
just the unhandled promise rejection lines.
Okay, I did get it. I was like, I'm not used to copy and pasting text from.
I converted it to an issue. Just try refreshing. Should be live, but
Cool. Am I able to put comments in from this pop out, or I need to go to the full?
you need to go to the full issue. I guess we would classify this as a bug.
What happened? Hold on a second. There it is. Okay. Cool. Actually, is there a way of? I guess it's formatting fine enough, but is there typically a way of pasting, say, terminal stuff that it takes on a little more codey type formatting, or?
You can just use the triple backticks, like that's the common markdown syntax
Oh,
for kind of code related stuff is triple backticks before and after.
cool. Oh, to end it, you mean? But I guess if I'm not
Yeah, I guess if it's,
writing anymore, it's fine.
yeah, yeah.
Comment edit history is not public. Okay, whatever. Cool.
Mhm.
Cool. And okay, so you're saying kill this, and or although
Yeah,
I can open other tabs
yeah.
in
You can just
this
open up a
thing.
new one, leave that running.
So let's see.
Let's I guess the link.
Was it no? Why'd you start this one with no flow dash RSF? Or you hadn't had that convention yet, or
Oh, wait, which one?
it's no flow dash RSF, right? That I want
Oh,
to go.
right. Yeah. I think it's because actually, uh, NoFlow does the same thing where they prefix all of things in their namespace with NoFlow. So I was thinking of that one when I made it, I think.
Ah.
Um, but I think either way, it's like,
Yeah, whatever. They're both in there. Google will find it.
yeah.
Um,
So then install dependencies for it
is that
with npm
npm
install.
install? Okay. And does npm, or I guess npm is Node, right? Or it's just the package manager for Node, or
Yeah, the node package manager, yeah.
and it does a intelligent job of like it's not. file system based. Like all these dependencies aren't installed again and again and again in the file system, is it? Or like will it not create duplicates, and if it doesn't have to?
Well,
I will. Okay.
yeah, just it's project specific. It's scope to the project, and yeah, you can have the same dependency many times, I guess, across your file system. Yeah.
Oh well. Cool.
Really, I don't think they actually take up that much space. So
No, they're just little bits of text, I guess. Or
yeah.
cool. What is this? Thank you for using core.js. Okay.
Okay. And yeah, so running the tests is just yeah, I know.
This guy's asking for work. That's kind of interesting. That's better than what was the thing you were telling me earlier about the sort of the ad-based sort of attempt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we can run the tests now with just npm test.
Test.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Mine doesn't have fun colors. Although it has the check mark. Probably.
Cool. Good stuff. All right. So far I only have tests for 3 of the modules. So that's not ideal either. Technically, this should take a lot longer to run because there should be like 10 or something. But I'm kind of trying to address that slowly. But the idea would be that we could. So that's in test. Then we have those 3 tests for the 3 different modules.
So how when you run npm test, how does it know what to do?
It's running a testing framework called Mocha, and Mocha, I think, probably just looks for files with .test.js.
Oh, okay. So once again, so people like React and Mocha are sort of claiming low-level sort of npm namespaces for their things, or like could some other project use npm test too, and it just, I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. You can run whatever you want inside the npm test command. Then I've specified I want to use Mocha for testing. Like
and where is that? Is that also in the sort of package JSON stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, just for my, I'm curious, just for my personal learning.
They're on line 10.
10. Oh, test. Oh, so that's where the scripts come in. Cool. Is that the same case for even npm run that you've said I want to use React for when I do npm run?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
It's all kind of like sort of like aliases for commands. And then you specify what you want the command to do. And then there's just conventions like across many projects to have a test command, but it's just convention. You could get rid of it.
Okay, cool.
But little gotcha is that like some commands like start and test have a shortcut where you can just run npm test or npm start. But most commands, especially if they're custom to your project, you have to run npm run test or npm run start or npm run build.
Okay.
So there's ones that like Node and npm specifically kind of highlight and feature and create a shortcut for, and then but most of them generically you have to do npm run, and then
so when we did npm run build earlier, it would have done something like this and whatever.
Yeah, it was referencing an internally defined command. Yeah.
Cool. And that's just a TypeScript one, I guess. Cool. Right. Oh, thanks for the extra context there.
So yeah, so then we've got the test files, the pairwise comparison, for example. Can you see why it's highlighting const, all the const things as Oh, it's JS hint.
Yeah, at some point in the past I installed a few extensions, so
right. You might want to disable JS hint specifically for this project or something in extensions.
Should I just uninstall it, or do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, extensions, JS hint. Sounds like you've got it installed. And you could just disable it. And you have the option to disable it for this workspace. That's what I was proposing.
And what's this concept of workspace? I can have multiple workspaces. Are you using that in some meaningful way? Like, are you able to switch between workspaces, or really you're just always using the same workspace?
I don't use it much, this workspace feature. I don't have many customizations, I don't think, really. Probably not taking advantage of many things.
Oh, okay. So a workspace is kind of probably project specific, where it's like, these are all the things I like on, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just not currently.
I think it saves, I think it's relative to the folder that you're in. Like it would save something in that folder and then remember it the next time that you opened it.
Okay.
That should fix the file. And we're looking at this. Yeah, that's better.
Cool.
Nice. So
that's cool. I don't know. I installed something and it's like shows these little lab beaker things. I guess it knows that it's a test thing.
Yeah. Okay, so the things, like there's three things in these files that come from Mocha. They're describe, context, and it. And all of them pretty much are ways of just adding human readable context to the test that's running. So you just see the plain strings running inside of them. So it's creating a little bit of a hierarchy, and you see the hierarchy when you run the tests too, right? Like you see it matches. When we ran the test, you see pairwise comparison and then indented when timeout is reached, and then indented from there. It says it should early exit and return 0 results.
Oh, okay.
See the indentations?
So describe is the first main thing.
Then context, and then it. And it's within it that we actually call certain they're called, like when we're writing tests, they're called assertions. And assertions are essentially like what you expect to be true. Like you expect a certain result and you see it on line 14 and stuff to equal something else. You expect basically two things to be equal. You call a function, you expect the result to be a certain thing. And done is the callback that we call when we're finished running our tests. So done is like a function, and on line 15, once we've completed our test, we call it. So essentially we're calling our core logic with a couple of canned variables, right? Contactables, the statements, the choice string, and the time limit. And within the callback or the promise chain where we have .then, that's where we check the length of the results array, which we propose to be 0 based on the inputs that we provided.
And wait, hold on. I'm going to go back to the. Oh, okay, so regardless of like, it's always going to say, for example, should exit early and return 0 results
Mhm.
because that's what we put here, but it's this expect that determines whether it's a check or a cross, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you change the 0 on line 14 to a 1 and then rerun the tests just to like see, um, uh,
Oh, oh, instead of a cross, it gives you the actual error, or
yeah, it gave us the error too, as well as the, well, I guess that's like it's throwing an error, which I don't know. Well, but it continues anyways. And essentially it says what went wrong. It says expected 0 to equal 1. So that was the assertion.
yeah, cool.
Mhm. And we see like, then we test it with different inputs, and we check the, we set the expectations for what the results are with different inputs that we provide to it. Like, and the most complex bit that kind of this is the fact that we have to simulate people speaking. Right, we have to simulate people sending messages to the bot essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we see the dot trigger, calls on line 38 to 40. That's like essentially mocking someone sending a message to the process. Which actually, by the way, you could add a comment there above those lines if you wanted about that.
I don't know. The word mocking sounds weird as a verb right now, but
Simulating, you could just say simulating. Don't mock me.
um, wait. So this is a so and the concept again, remind me of the contactables is all the different things like Telegram or Mattermost, and so this is
They have a unified or yeah, there's an API that's common across all of them.
okay. I don't know if that's good enough, but
Yeah, like I just add one more line saying like e.g. or like sending a message to the bot or the process. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
do you have a convention for like space after the comment or not, or
Um, sure, like having a space, yeah.
cool.
So you see, we give for this one we provide three statements, like three inputs,
Mm-hmm.
and this is pairwise comparison. There's three inputs, and the general thing that we're trying to state here is that when it compares everything and the list has n items, it should have n times n minus 1 over 2 times the number of participants' results. So this is simulating like what we were talking about, where it reaches like maximum, like everyone who participates completes everything, every possible pair from every possible person. This is simulating that case. And it's exactly like you said when we were talking about it. It's about thinking through what the different cases are, and sort of simulating them.
So because there's only three, then there's only three pairings. So that's why there's three triggers, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And in each one, you are doing the thing where you pick one. You're saying 1 or 0 or 1. You're picking between the 0 and the 1 options.
Cool. Oh, and so this is actually, hold on a second. Core logic. That means it knows. Oh, core logic. Okay, it's requiring it literally from the pairwise comparison JS file or whatever it is, not TS file.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I guess the trick to doing development would be, but we could fix this. I guess what I would say is open up the package JSON file, because we should make sure that every time that you're trying to run tests, basically it's already pre-built the components. So I would say that we should run, we should modify the test command on line 10 to say npm run build.
Like before Mocha or instead of Mocha?
Before Mocha, yeah, npm run build, and then and, or ampersand.
Oh, so it does both?
So then it will do both. Yeah, it'll do the first one and then the second one. First it'll build, and then it'll run the tests. And that'll make sure that any changes that you made to the source files in the TS components are compiled, pre-compiled into components. And then because the test files reference the pre-compiled ones. So that's a bit of a weird. Ideally, this is like a little bit of stuff that I should fiddle with and make it so that maybe even the tests could be written in TypeScript. Like I'd prefer it that way. I just haven't gotten around to converting the tests to working with TypeScript too. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Oh, and all that sort of, I don't know if it's VS Code magic, but you were saying earlier about how it was sort of showing you errors because of TypeScript. Is that something that needs an extension, or VS Code sort of does that by default?
Oh, VS Code does that by default, yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's open up like the pairwise comparison module in TS components. So this should technically probably be pairwise comparison vote now, but I haven't renamed it.
Okay.
But that's kind of like what this one equates to. It's a process that relates to the voting process. But also the other file that this one pulls in is the generic pairwise function from in the libs folder, or the tslibs folder, and that's where our under shared. Yeah, and then down at the bottom of this file, we've got the generic pairwise one here. So this is the one that all three pairwise modules call this function inside of them.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's here. It's roughly here that we could explore our consideration of like kind of adding a new option adding a new option to the pairwise processes of like the kind of communal version
Mm-hmm.
of the pairwise process. I was thinking about like how to kind of describe this to you, and I was almost picturing like a mental. I was kind of trying to picture a mental model of like how this works and how we would change it, because I actually think that it will be quite simple, because basically I'm imagining that there would be a new input that you would provide to this function that says whether you want this to be a communal version or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a Boolean, really. And based on the Boolean, you run it slightly differently. And the difference is essentially which one. So it's like, I guess go down a little bit. Here. Right. So we have these kinds of abstractions of certain functions, such as is personal complete, on personal complete, and is total complete.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of where we've got is personal complete and is total complete, these are the two ones that are most most relevant to be thinking about changing. And the reason is because we're right now, see if you can read line 158 for me and just tell me what you interpret it as.
Basically, I guess it's length. That's referring to what, an array? I guess it's saying like it's always returning true or false depending on if you've personally completed the full array of possible sort of comparisons.
Right, exactly. And it'll only call it, well, it'll call it every time until, it'll call it every time that it gets a response until it returns true, if that makes sense. So it's going to check every time that it gets a new response, it's going to check if it's now complete. And it's going to stop calling it if it returns true at any point.
What do you mean by stop calling it? And I'm not even that familiar with this const thing. Like that represents literally a constant, or
right.
Not really, or what is that?
It's really a function. We see that it's a function because of the arrows on the right.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm actually kind of feeling ambiguous about this. I think that maybe I should convert functions to use the function keyword. I'm not really sure. It's kind of a weird thing. You can define a function as a constant, but I don't know really what difference it makes. Sometimes I think I prefer the syntax, but I don't know of a concrete difference that it makes between just using the keyword function.
Is that a TypeScript thing, or that's a general JavaScript thing?
It's a JavaScript thing, and it's like since ES6 version of JavaScript or something, there's been this const keyword.
Okay.
But yeah.
But you were saying that it'll stop calling it. Like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's calling this function all the time?
It's our more general function that we call up at the top. It's our sort of abstract one that many of the flows use the modules called the collect from contactables, which is in this file. If you go down, okay, collect from contactables. See, this is personal complete function.
Oh, I highlighted it. Okay, so.
And then if you go down, here to the next reference to it, I guess.
This one.
So basically it calls it every time that it receives a message from a person, it checks. It calls that function is personal complete with the current list of personal results, which are declared on line 77.
Mm-hmm.
So it checks whether that person is already complete, and that determines whether it will handle a new result from that person or not.
Okay.
So if they're already...
So they can continue messaging, but if they're done, then the bot is really going to do nothing with that new message.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So there's that one, the is personal complete one, and then there's the is total complete, and that one, take a look at the Boolean that it returns.
All results so far.
So this is every result from everyone in one aggregate list.
Yeah.
Versus the results of the individual. The ones collected from an individual. And the multiplication is the number, so contactables is the people. So we've got the length of the people times the length of the pairs, and we're comparing that to the total the total set of results so far to see whether the entire process is complete. So these are like, these two functions really are the ones that need to change, like would need to change in order to handle this case where we want to oh, and also the other one that would need to change is within on result. You see how within on result, this is saying, okay, they've just successfully submitted a result. Okay, so they've just voted or described or whatever they've done. So what should it do now? And in the case that we currently have, what it should do is it should send that person back in contactable.speak. It should send that person back the next result formatted nicely for them to vote on, right? So what it, I guess the way that I would refactor this just a little bit so that the thing towards the end there where it says pairs texts responses so far, I would take it out from that function call and I would declare it as a new variable directly above this one, because it kind of is the one where you pick from the list of pairs. Which one is the next one to format and then to send them.
Yeah, actually, to just thinking in terms of modularity, and I guess you're talking about refactoring, it occurred to me just as we were starting to get into this particular problem of with pairwise, you sort of have two algorithms or two sort of important pieces of logic, is like, particularly in the cases where you're not committing to sort of do the whole set of possible combinations because maybe it's just ridiculously too much or you don't have time, or you're doing more of a iterative ongoing process where you're not going to be able to do them all now, you have to come back later, but basically there might be two functions or two algorithms, one being the algorithm that decides what what comparison to match make, like what of the two pairs should be matched. Because I think in the future there might be, we might want to get a little more intelligent about like why we're matching two things, particularly if there's prior results already coming in to say like, well, in the case where we're doing sort of prioritization of tasks as the types of things we're putting through this pairwise thing, we might say like, well, right now I don't care about unimportant tasks. So why would I pull from a pool of the like lower priority tasks? I only want to match make the high priority stuff. So that might be a sort of named algorithm for matchmaking of pairs, rather than just, who knows, like completely random, or maybe just an arbitrary alphabetical ordering of like, I'm going to do A versus B first, then A versus C, or something like that. So yeah, the algorithm of how you're choosing the pairs to match, and then also the algorithm of how you're assigning human participants to sort of evaluate those pairs. So as we were saying before, sort of like when we did this sort of social experiment on the last RSF call, it was kind of like, well, again, if we have prior knowledge about sort of the social network graphs or prior iterations, you might assign to me what should Connor and I don't know, Charles talk about, but maybe you don't want to assign to me what should Stacy and Kayla talk about, or something like that. So yeah, intelligently deciding who to assign the pairs that you've just paired up. I don't know. It seemed like that isn't exactly baked into here, or this doesn't include modularity at that level to like even break down further pairwise comparison.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I captured that as notes into the board, because I think those are really concrete things that we can achieve.
Well, just I guess a time check here. I originally had only scheduled it for an hour and a half. Do you still have time, or do you want to sort of transition into converging and wrapping up, or?
Yeah, probably let's kind of wrap up and converge. Sounds good.
The small little changes I made, I guess I should
Yeah.
sort of push those, or
Yeah.
it was only something real small, like I changed the package JSON thing.
Do one more thing for me, where you, in that pairwise file, where or is it in here? Or yeah, no, it was in here.
Shared.
This pairs text responses so far piece in this line 168 towards the end of the line. That bit, if we could pull that, yeah, from there and declare it as a new variable right above this. So this would be like next const next pair. It's kind of like a precursor step, equals that thing, and then re-add it to line 169 as next pair in that place there. Yeah, and then next, maybe rename next as
next assignment, or what do we want to call
next pair formatted, I guess.
Okay.
Because it's really just formatted it as a string, a nice readable string for the person, and then pass that to contactable.speak on the next one. Right. So that just makes it a little more.
And have we accounted for all instances of the name changes, or is it that stuff used elsewhere in this?
No, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
okay.
For the whole thing. But for confidence factor, you can like rerun the tests, right?
Oh, okay. So I'll save this. I think does the dot mean there's something in here I didn't save?
Yeah. I think it's just
because I added comments. Okay. Okay, so those comments are saved now in your, I guess that should have fixed the intentional error we created.
So our pairwise tests are passing, so we know that our code is fine.
Cool. Okay, and so I guess if I go to this should have noticed multiple repos that I made. Oh, and this was something, what is this? Integrity.
rsf-electron. This one's, don't worry about this, just switch to no-flow RSF.
Oh, okay, so there are ones, there, that's how it shows it. I guess it shows a little dot.
You can commit all these changes, I think.
Oh, there must have been some automated stuff, or like, what are these things that I didn't change? Oh, maybe some of the testing just changed little files or something somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually related to this, just for your own, from your own practice, do you normally try and be sort of like, I don't know, really structured around committing perfect comments? Like, because we just sort of arbitrarily changed a bunch of different things. Like, do you not worry about sort of trying to make a description? Like, I put a comment here and I slightly changed this thing, and
like that. You kind of like, depends on the moment. Like, are you rushed or not rushed, or like, are you? But just in general, yeah, it's fine to describe even when they made the changes.
All right. So commit to master push. Oh, I'm not logged in or something. File options, refresh my token. Okay, maybe let's see. Options. I'll just sign out and sign back in.
You can sign in using your browser, or if you remember.
Oh, there we go. Why isn't this? I think that used to be like automatic for me.
There you go. I think you're good.
Oh, okay. Anyways, oh, now I can. It's already ready.
Yeah.
Do you not have? Oh, maybe I don't have permission.
Oh. I'll check, but I thought that you would. Let me check the org. Oh, you only have, you were, you were blocked from editing because you didn't have the right access. Let me try adjusting this access level here. I'm going to give you
And actually, are you able to do more of the workflow of pull requests from, I guess, the desktop thing, and request sort of like reviews from this app too, or that's done some other way?
I guess you have to go to GitHub for some of that, although you can like easily open or get links to the pull request pages and stuff. So I think I've changed it now. Try again. Yeah.
There it goes. Cool.
I added you like as an admin to the organization, so probably you're going to get like a little bit of an email blast or something.
Cool.
But now
sweet.
You can edit the project board and everything too, and all the issues.
Oh, maybe that was the error with me trying to change notes too.
Yeah, that was the error.
Cool. Yeah, I see the email from that. Sweet.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Be like, it's cool because we have the on no-flo RSF, we have continuous integration running too. Like if you go to that repo on here, you see this
Circle CI.
yeah, the circle CI, the path badge there is
Mm-hmm.
like, it means that the latest push also passed tests, and it's just running that in the CI. So that's something I
Cool.
want more and more of, right? For tests.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Awesome. So yeah, so we'll kind of any. I expect that it might be a little bit too much of a um, challenge to actually tackle that on your own still.
mm-hmm.
Um, but so yeah, so I expect that it will involve maybe us coming back to it again and making those changes. But I guess it would be interesting just to reflect quickly on what we learned or something.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna stop sharing and just, I guess I don't know. If since we're recording these, I guess for the most part, the only people it would be useful to is people that are interested in syncing up to become
Hmm.
full deep developers of RSF themselves too. But just for clarity, what I set up today was like almost like a dev environment, but it occurred to me to ask that we could totally, and maybe I should have kept the GitHub open, but what we had done before was making it easier with Electron to, was it called builds or releases or something? Like we can put out for the different platforms sort of easily installable
Yeah.
version sort of copies of this, and
Yeah.
people that just want to run this and not develop it, they can, it's an easier workflow to getting it installed and running some
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And we should be able to do a Windows distribution too. Like we tested that a little bit
mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
before. Um, there's nothing. Yeah, there's no dependencies that Windows shouldn't be able to fulfill, as well as Mac and Linux. So technically, we
Mm-hmm.
should be able to target the three platforms and make it pretty accessible, pretty widely distributed. Um, so that's cool.
Cool. Well, yeah, I guess learning or for whatever, it's like I find it always useful that like this is just one iteration of a piece of practice, but yeah, getting back in the flow of developing and sort of the tools are already set up, so each time it's sort of like easier, and yeah, things like that GitHub desktop app make it a little bit easier to sort of um, abstract away some of the little bits of learning that aren't that core to like the actual logic of articulating, hey, I want this sort of module that's going to do this sort of pattern of process design that we've sort of noticed and wanted to sort of encode into a easily repeatable sort of, well, I guess, yeah, pattern is the good word for it.
Yeah,
So
I liked seeing. I liked that we sort of tracked down a few little kind of glitches, and it's like just through us looking at it together and you using it for kind of like the first time or close to it, like
mm-hmm.
having those experiences of like of early usage and then like feeding that into like really important improvements to the user experience that could actually kind of make or break it, like just even though they're little things and that kind of thing, like um, and also but also things, so that's like on the user experience, but there's also like the user experience for you as a developer that I'm like watching and paying attention to, like, oh yeah, like little things that I do and that I know to do based on like moving quickly and just setting it up a certain way and then being like, oh yeah, but that's like that's not documented anywhere, it's not intuitive, it's not like, something, there's something that in seeing you looking at it and thinking about how what your experience would be trying to make any changes to the code would be like, that also helps improve and make more accessible the development stack, like that's another layer of value that's kind of like so that it's not just me and all my tacit knowledge that's driving like how the development workflow can be on it, that it gets more accessible. It feels great. So those were things that I was noticing and like feeling excited about.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think often for me, and part wrapped up in that sort of tacit stuff, is that I think often deeper, more seasoned developers like know how to go to a GitHub repo and glance through a folder system and get some sort of sense where important things are and what's the sort of like important places to look to see how things are done. Where,
Mm,
yeah, like because I think to make this project accessible, yeah, certain like knowing where the say the core logic thing is, or even what fold, like almost like a little roadmap to like
mm,
um, for somebody more like me, where it's like, sure, I can think through some piece of logic that would be useful, but if I need to understand the whole architecture and how all this stuff works, then I'll get sort of overwhelmed. But if there was like a little roadmap to say, hey, go here into this. Oh, wow! All I said was go, and my Google thinks I'm trying to talk to it. Sorry. um, yeah, but I think that, and this is maybe getting at what I was saying a little earlier about what some sort of like pseudocode layer we could sort of have on top of this that would allow somebody to
mm,
sort of say, hey, I have an idea of a certain thing that I would wish existed in the space, that it could sort of exist in something like a Kanban board or roadmap thing.
right.
But I guess now that this repo exists, like those sort of things could technically get dumped into a GitHub repo. But um,
I'm going to attach the links uh, to the designs to a few of the relevant GitHub issues as well. The links to the XD designs that Pega did.
yeah.
So that if you clicked and opened, and you can look at them and be like, you know, you can compare what's developed so far with what's not there yet, and also, yeah, you can technically use it now, right? Like on your, like give it a try with a few different things, like just plug in your own name and try running,
Oh,
try
and
running.
actually, that reminds me. Well, obviously, I was pointing out at our meetup yesterday that like a big piece, at least for personal practice of using some of these process design tools, I would want it functioning on mobile. But you said the Electron thing is mostly for laptop, desktop, right? It doesn't make a like
Right.
this isn't yet fully nice and functioning. Although I guess I could run it on my computer every morning and then talk to Telegram to like chew through some chew
Mm-hmm.
through some stuff.
You could open up a long running process or something like that. Say like give it like 12 hours.
Yeah.
And also I was thinking like long term that like based on what we're developing, we could open up the direction again in the future if we want, where there is like you could create a bot that lets you initiate new flows and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Like the bot could essentially be your, and this was what we did back with MetaMaps, was like to design the flow, you still talk to the bot. It's just
Yeah.
that now we've taken the design part into an app. Um,
Hmm.
but we know how to do that. We know how to make it so that you interact with a few questions with the bot, and then it launches a flow, and then you're in the flow versus like,
Actually, do we have that as a sort of distinction yet? Is sort of like a named templates versus named actual processes in 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 process?
hmm,
Because yeah, in speaking to a bot, it could be like run or create a new, basically like a no-flow graph, but like do an example of start up one of those, and it could just be, as long as it's a named
yeah,
thing, then you could.
Yeah, yeah.
say it to the bot, and it knows it's a template and it's not restarting up some ongoing asynchronous sort of process or something. Sort of start where I left off, which I just to ask right now. Well, I guess this is where some of the refactoring that we were pointing at earlier comes in. In order to have a more asynchronous sort of pause and restart, we need to break out a little bit of it to be a little more, even more modular. It's sort of like.
Well, I think that if you worked on making, if we work on making the changes that can take a prior run as an input to a new run,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially you've opened up this asynchronous thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, like you just store the results temporarily, and then you feed the old results into the new flow, and then if, depending on the algorithm, how it, like you said, how it picks from things and it knows what it's already got, so it could do process of elimination and say like, okay, these are the ones that aren't compared. There's no votes for such and such, so so those are the ones to go for. And I think those kinds of changes are totally doable. And yeah, it would just be like, I want to rerun this process with the unresponded ones.
Mm-hmm.
And those are interesting changes that we could work on making,
Yeah, and
without
actually,
too deep into re-architecting or anything.
cool. Well, that sounds good. And I guess just I got excited by this idea. Well, I'm excited by the idea that we're just passing around graphs as like both the data and sort of the process, and that, yeah, like we could have cool sort of like graph transformations where it's like, okay, I do want to use this prior graph, but I want to start fresh. So it kind of like takes an old graph and just deletes all the edges. Now you got a bunch of nodes, which are what you're doing pairwise comparison on,
Right.
and sort of run it through. So,
Right. Technically an array of, like, if you have an array of any of our pairwise types, then you technically have a graph, because the pairwise, the things, they actually store the whole, like the edges actually store the whole nodes, both whole nodes. They don't just store IDs, they actually store the whole the statements. Like, so you don't even need the list of statements separately. Technically, you could just, an entire graph is encapsulated in a set of edges, because the edges hold the nodes.
yeah,
Too.
all the, unless there's some nodes that you care about that hadn't yet been compared in any way, and it's just kind of a floating node without an edge. But
yeah, then you need the list of statements and the list of the pairwise things. Check out the link that I shared, because it's just like, because it shows. I've been describing these things taken all together as pairwise X types, because they're
okay.
pairwise something, and they all share a data structure, right? They just have a different edge type, essentially, right?
Well, yeah, that's it's sort of where I was thinking, and we were already talking earlier about how all this will be sort of JSON based, but I was wondering, yeah, I must have already looked at this, like if there's standards for sort of like, or we must have already looked at it, and maybe this is something that like something like actually I'm forgetting the name of the GraphViz library, but yeah, that a JSON sort of graph structure or standard. And but actually the no-flow graphs that are passed around, are they also encoded in JSON?
Yeah.
Like, wow, yeah, perfect. Okay, well, I don't know. I'm feeling sort of full, and I don't know how much more of this I'll actually process right now. So
yeah,
feels to me like a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Cool.